Reason 725 as to why people have lost their daggone minds in the era of Obama, even though this doesn't have anything to do with President Obama, per se. Coming up next on Get Right with Lenny McAllister, starting right
now. Get Right with Lenny McAllister.
You have no taste, a lousy sense of humor, and you smell.
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion.
So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
We cannot find physical sanity here in the land of Lincoln from Carbondale to Elgin in which collectively continue to tolerate an insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East Texas.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics.
It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizen.
I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being a conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
Feel like a black republic, money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got love for them.
I do know that I agree with being angry with these type of situations continuously ongoing, so I'm going to jump right into it. Welcome once again to another edition of Get Right with Lenny McAllister. You know what to do on this podcast. You know where to find me on Twitter. It's very simple. LennyMcAllister is the place to tweet back and forth with me. On Facebook, it's tinyurl.com/LennyPage. That's tinyurl.com/Lenny Page. And I'm just going to jump right into it. Like I said, I think this has to do with President Obama, but not in the way that some attribute to him. And that's where it's just unfair. I do think 100% that race relations since President Obama was elected November 4th, 2008, I do believe that race relations in America over the last 5 years have gone in quite the wrong direction. Do I think that it's his fault? No. Do I think that he serves as an unfortunate milestone as to when race relations started going over the cliff? Yes, I do. Do I think it's something that he did? No, I don't. Other than obviously being elected president of the United States. Which, heck, I mean, he was elected president of the United States. I say that for this, and I'm not, you can give me your feedback, and I'm putting this out there now for Democrats and Republicans, progressives, and conservatives alike. I am not attributing any blame to this president for the reversal of race relations. I have said previously, I think he could have done more to get us on a better path. I think that he missed some opportunities to do that. But that's not the same as saying that he is the reason as far as he did something to prompt this. But I'm on this vein because here's yet another incident of another African American under the age of 30. In fact, I think Ms. McBride, may her soul rest in peace, Renisha McBride up in Michigan, believe she was under 20. I believe she was 19 years old. Here's another, and if that's the case, another black teenager getting shot by a nervous white American who shot first, kind of sort of asked questions later. And you know I'm referring to Trayvon Martin. And you got another kid that's being buried. Another, in many, many ways, innocent kid. Now, I guarantee you somebody's going to dig into her background like they did Trayvon Martin and tell us about the time where she was at a party with a 40 in her hand talking about, yeah, I'm listening to this rap music because, we're all, down like that. What's the dealio? Or whatever kids say nowadays. I'm waiting for it. And that is indicative of what I'm saying now. Over the last 5 years, it seems as though it is quite okay to start retargeting African Americans in a way that isn't cool because the default for some people, and I'm not saying the majority of white Americans, that's not where I'm going with this, but there are some, and that number is growing. There are some that now have the extremely unfortunate yet convenient default of saying, We can't be a racist nation in America. We have a black president. We can't be racist in America. My opinion cannot possibly be racist. I voted for the first African American president. I know that President Obama is our president. I respect him as our president. I just disagree with his policies, and I think black youth need to claim more personal responsibility and just go get a job, even though we'll blame President Obama for the lack of jobs. So I think, and I think, I'm angry. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm tired of seeing young black people go through this, whether it's stop and frisk, whether it's getting shot in these type of situations, where now you're going to ask questions later. Oh, he was just scared. You know how many times black people are scared of white people in certain situations? How about, for example, and I'm not saying all white people, and I'm not saying all black people, but I'm saying the reverse is true. For example, in corporate America. Do you know how often black people are scared of white people in corporate America, knowing that if they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, they may get written up or fired over absolutely nothing? Do you know what it's like to be an African American and be walking the streets minding your own business at 11 o'clock at night in your own neighborhood and have 2 white police officers pull up on you? Heck, we won't even go into driving while black and what that is like. 11:30 at night, your registration's fine, full tank of gas, in your own neighborhood, minding your own business, 3 miles an hour below the speed limit, driving appropriately, and have one police officer pull up behind you, and then a second police officer pull up behind you. Why? See, the excuse of fear that comes up in these situations that say, well, you know, something just wasn't right. Something, you know, he had a right to be fearful. She was banging on his door. I mean, and we saw how that worked out too, even in the Trayvon Martin situation. He was threatening. What did he have? I thought he had a gun. It ended up being a can and some Skittles. He was getting his head banged off the concrete. If he's getting his head banged off the concrete and he has a can in his pocket, why wouldn't he use the can to bash his head in? If he were that ruthless and bloodthirsty. These narratives continue to turn, and then when you start having the prevalence of stand your ground gets applied one way to one set of people versus your John McNeils, your Marissa Alexanders, and it's applied completely differently. When you have stop and frisk, where you have more incidences of black men being stopped and frisked than you have black men living in the city of New York. That was a study that came out in 2012, I believe. New York City. You have a court defending stop and frisk, and the mayor-elect up there, Bill de Blasio, saying he's going to stand against it. And I already ripped the former Republican nominee, Joe Lotta, for defending stop and frisk in an indirect way. You have people that sit there and say that the black community does not have enough personal accountability or responsibility. That's why they're in the condition that they're in. Never mind the absence of stable business environments. Never mind the horrible schools. Never mind the lack of civic leadership. And you can blame other African Americans on some of that, absolutely. Heck, even in Detroit with the corruption of the former mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick, who ended up got sentenced for over 2 decades, and his latest trial and conviction. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's all black people being victimized by all white people. That's not where I'm going with this. Nor am I saying, again, like I said earlier, I'm not going to say that race relations have gone over the cliff because President Obama did something other than get elected the 44th president of the United States. He did that. That was his fault. Quote unquote, air quotes, sarcasm, snark, snark, snort, snort, his fault. Ever since that election, there seems to be a turn in the attitude among more people in America to turn a blind eye to the racial disparities that are out there in America. Now, I know there are some of you that will sit there and say, Lenny, that's what makes you a rhino. Lenny, that's what makes you not truly a conservative, because you play the race card. You are like Sharpton and Jackson. I knew that time on the south side of Chicago spoiled you a little bit. Kind of ruffled your feathers. made you not a real conservative, made you squishy. You're a spy for the Democrats. You's a spy. I know you're out there saying this craziness, and I'm just going to call it out for what it is. It's craziness. Anybody that believes in true conservative values wants all citizens of the United States to be treated fairly so that they can pursue happiness, take care of themselves, and in that effort, increase tax revenue, increase liberty, shrink the influence of government, and allow the American dream to prosper throughout all four corners of the United States of America and across our diversity. That's a true conservative. So if that means you have to call out racism and its toxicity that is permeating throughout the American system and stopping people from having an opportunity to accomplish that American dream in the ghettos, in urban America, as a black teenager, then so be it. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. Again, your feedback is much appreciated. I have a 19-year-old, and this girl was 19 years old that was shot. My daughter drives. This girl got in a car accident, and that's how she got shot. Yes, I take it personally. Stop and frisk. My 14-year-old looks like he's 24 years old. People think he is a grown man, and they have thought that of him since he was about 12 years old. So, can my son be a victim of stop and frisk walking through his own neighborhood, walking through my neighborhood? Whether he's over here, or over with his mom, or or here with us? Absolutely. When he's walking to the store, can he get stop and frisk for doing absolutely nothing? An AB student at one of the leading schools in the Pittsburgh metropolitan area. Can he get stop and frisk? Could that stop and frisk become a murder? Absolutely. And the prevalence of this has increased. The profile of this has increased. The tolerance of this, even the excuse making of this, has increased over the last 5 years because there are some that hide behind the shield of, well, we have an African American president. It can't be racism. Hey, we're in Boston where this is happening with the Skip Gates incident in 2009. We have a black governor, so it can't be racism. You have these things continuing to permeate. And then you look at the disparities with the wealth gap like you have here in Pittsburgh, where it's the largest wealth gap between blacks and whites in the United States of America. Pittsburgh, and again, my hometown, Pittsburgh has the highest amount of black female-headed households in the United States per capita, by percentage, by ratio. These numbers are going in the wrong direction. We talk about this as social conservatives all the time, but we refuse to talk about some of the other social issues that, from a conservative point of view, are highly offensive and highly destructive to the American dream. When somebody cannot knock on a door without getting shot, when they're in need in America, and I still don't care where you are. I lived on the south side of Chicago where there is a prevalence of violence everywhere. And I could still walk at 1:30 at night and walk past gangbangers and say hello. Walk past security guards and say hello. Walk past college students and say hello. Walk past people going to the theater or going from Dunkin' Donuts or going to get a drink and say hello. If I can do that there, and everybody knows about the violence in Chicago, you should be able to do that anywhere. And when you have, and you're going to see it again in this case, you're already seeing it. This is the problem I have with it. When you see conservatives line up behind the gun owner, and you see African Americans lining up behind the victim, and you know what the numbers look like from a socioeconomic and a racial perspective when those lines start to be created, when they start lining up against each other, you're not going to sit there and tell me that race relations in America are getting better because we have an African American president. Or, and this is probably the more offensive thing, and I'm speaking directly to conservatives at this point in time. I love you all. You know I love the Tea Party. The Tea Party has value. Sometimes they overstep, just like the Republican establishment sometimes oversteps, just like the Democratic establishment sometimes oversteps. We're all falling short of the glory of God. And that includes politically, especially politically. But here's my thing. When conservatives, like me, want to come up and tell me we pay too much attention to race, when you see the racial disparities growing, you see the incidences of stop and frisk growing. Now, I know you got idiots, and well, he's not an idiot, but it's idiotic. Let me put it like this. When you have idiotic behavior and statements coming from Don Lemon, who I like. I've been on the air with Don dozens of times. I've met Don several times. Love him as a child of God. But these type of, it was a couple weeks ago on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Wouldn't you rather be safe and just have stop and frisk? He's saying these things to be sensational. He's sensationalizing this for ratings. And it's a darn shame. Because as a black man in his 40s that's successful, his behind can be stop and frisked just the same if he were driving in Wyoming and nobody recognized him and he's driving at 2 o'clock in the morning and he gets pulled over by 3 state troopers. Heck, his former colleague T.J. Holmes was pulled over driving while black. So if you can see Tyler Perry in Atlanta, both of the last 2 incidences were in Atlanta. Famous, rich individuals. So when you see these things continuously happening to rich and famous black men, and then you have some folks like a Don Lemon who is not a Tea Party conservative, but he represents some of the prevailing attitude that does come from the conservative point of view, that we focus too much on race, that we bring up the race card for far too much, that this is just a ploy by the progressives and by Al Sharpton to make money and Jesse Jackson to shake you down and Louis Farrakhan to start a race war and all of the NAACP to win elections. All this other craziness that you hear when you see the racial disparities growing. You see these types of incidences. 19-year-old woman. I know you're an old man, but you got a phone. You shot the girl and then called 911. You telling me you couldn't call 911 first, then pick up your shotgun? Anybody that tells me that there's not a growing attitude that I can kill me, an African American, and get away with it if I claim fear. If you're not seeing a dangerous pattern, I can stop and frisk an African American and have them be completely innocent and know I'm not going to lose my job over it. If you're not understanding the historical template that's in place, this is akin to, it's not the same as, but it is similar, the same vein of, well, he raped me 50 years ago. White woman, black man, talks to you, you're okay with it till your husband comes past, then it was, he was coming on to me. Or you date the black man as a white woman in the South, it's a secret relationship. When people find out, he raped me. And knowing that, and here's where it's similar, knowing that you can get away with that although all the facts don't match up with it, although common sense tells you this isn't right, although you can think of 1,000 different ways to avoid the situation, get around the situation, be bold, or just avoid it altogether, or just claim it. Just claim it. Instead, you know that if I go with the cowardly line, I can get out of this. Just the same. George Zimmerman, I'm big and bad. I'm told to stay in the car. I'm going to follow this kid anyway because I got a gun. And worst case scenario, I'll take him out and I will get away with it. What ends up happening, you confront the kid, you think you're going to bully the kid, you're going to play hero, you put your hands on the kid hits you back because he don't know who you are, maybe he saw the gun, he's fighting for his life, you shoot the kid, you get away with it. Renisha McBride, I almost said Marissa Alexander, and I will get to her in a second. Renisha McBride, same thing. Knocking on the door, I see a black person, I know worst case scenario, if I shoot, and I know that they said the gun misfired, accidentally fired. No call to 911 first? That's the problem I have. No call to 911 first? There is an attitude when you pick up the gun first. There's an attitude that basically says, worst case scenario, I will get off on this because I'm only shooting a black girl. That is the problem that's wrong with this. That is what's permeating throughout the American society today that is threatening to blow up this nation. And I do think the milepost for this change in attitude was November 4th, 2008. It had nothing to do with something that President Obama did other than have the audacity of hope to run for the presidency of the United States. You like how I worked in the book title there. That, and again, that's not his fault, other than if you want to blame him for having the uppityness code to run for the president, then that's fine. If that's what you want to go with, that's cool. Not really, but you know where I'm going with that. Otherwise, as I wrap up, you continue to see an acceptance of being able to treat citizens like this. And here's where I go to progressives with this. You need to be louder than you are on this with stop and frisk. You need to be louder than you are on these incidences of violence against black people. When it comes to the police, when it comes to stand your ground and all these other things, because you will stand for the human rights and the legitimacy of undocumented residents, I'll put it like that, to be in the United States, but I don't hear people yelling from the rooftops on a consistent basis for African American citizens that are going through this at a higher rate, whether it's jobs, academia, or dare I say walking the streets and either getting stopped and frisked, pulled over, driving while black, or flat out shot and killed with people asking questions later. That is a problem from the progressive side. You want to take up a cause? Take up the cause for the black citizen, particularly the black youth that are citizens going through this. And again, maybe this is more personal for me because I have a 19-year-old. I have a 14-year-old boy. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to have the American dream, conservatives and progressives, this has to stop. Black America, as I close, what are you going to do about it? When are you going to rise up? When are you going to rise up with a continued effort to eradicate this from our society? I'm game. And I'm not game out of hatred or malice. I'm game because I love this country. I love black people. I love all people. And it's time to push out racism, whether it's subtle and quote unquote indirect, or it's just full of malice and malintentions. Either way, it's time to finally push back in a long-term manner. What say you? You know where to find me on Twitter, LennyMcAllister. On Facebook, love to get your comments there. I know that some of you are going to be pissed off about what I said, but at this point in time, we need to have some real talk so people can stop dying. That's where I am with it. In the meanwhile, live your life. Let's live it together as one big team. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Unemployment numbers come out. We'll talk about that then. In the meanwhile, TCNGB, take care and God bless. I love you. Peace.